The question of where I'm being fed at St. Paul's or anywhere really comes back to me to communion. Because in that moment of taking the bread, Christ's body, into me, of taking the wine, Christ's life, into me, that is where I hear God's love most completely. Knowing that God so longs to connect to me, God so longs to connect to you, that God would choose to be with us as completely and totally as possible. That moment is what feeds me. And for me, my favorite moment of communion was giving communion at our first outdoor communion service. There were so many safety protocols in place. I nearly forgot to take communion myself. I was so concerned with making sure that my gloves were on and my mask was on, and I was moving back when I needed to move back. But still, somehow in that moment, as we broke our fast, I was able to give each person that most precious and incredible message that Christ has for all of us, that you belong, that you matter, that you were meant to be, that you matter so much, that Christ's own body, Christ's own life have come to be with you and in you and around you and to never leave you. But one of the things I said as I was looking at that tiny congregation is to remind us that this table isn't just for us. There were so many others who didn't get to break their communion fast that day, and so many others who don't come to communion, who don't connect to church the way we do. And so that food, it's our job to take that food, that message, that table out into the world, because that love comes through us so that we can feed others with it. We are fed by that bread so that we can go out and feed literal bread to those who have none, so that we can feed love and hope to those who have none, so that we can bring the life of justice and peace and kindness and hope to a world that right now is struggling with incredible unrest around our racial history, that is struggling with a pandemic. Communion is that moment when we get to be fed by God in a very specific way, but it is something that transforms us so that we can then become that bread and that life of God for others. And I hope that as we continue to take communion over Zoom, over Facebook, over YouTube, however it is that you all are getting to do it, that feels truly meaningful to you, that you remember that God is feeding you, even here, even now, even in the midst of this pandemic, even as I can't hand you the bread, even as I can't hold up that cup of wine for you. But knowing that you are taking your communion from your home, I'm taking it from my home. My little son, who is delighted and says, "Oh, this is my favorite," every time that wafer comes out, is taking it with us as well. And that God is feeding us so that we as a church can go out and feed one another and feed a world in need. That is true hope. Amen.